Okay. I did a major miscalculation in the last chapter. Or Akasaka did. That was quite a fuck up. Kids say, but what about me? That was my first time losing consciousness. You often hear regaining consciousness on top of a bed, but it was my first time actually experiencing it. Hello, are you okay? Realizing that I was awake, a young doctor called out to me. I didn't intend to respond, but it seems my body language told him I was conscious. My head was wrapped in bandages. The scratches all over my body had been treated. A sense of pain returned with my consciousness. I groaned from the intense pain shooting throughout me. Don't try to get up, just stay lying down, please. Seems you took quite a few blows to the head. I want you to stay rested so we can monitor your condition for at least the next 24 hours. Where am I? My clinic. Pleased to meet you. I'm Erie. I remember this young doctor. He was the one on the car, heading the opposite way. Is there somebody here? Where's Oishi? Ah, I'll call him over. No smoking inside the clinic. I had him smoke outside. So Dr. Erie left the room to call Oishi. The scenery outside the window was tinted with gold. The pouring rain stopped, the voices of the Higurashi heralding the cooling temperature. I feel that the tone of the Higurashi's voices were comforting. Eventually I could hear heavy footsteps coming. I reckon it's Oishi. The fog that was enveloping my head slowly faded back to reality. What happened since then? What happened to the boy? What about reinforcements from Tokyo? The door to the room flew open, allowing Dr. Erie and Oishi to enter. So there's no serious damage, is there? Well, I can't promise that. I assessed the wounds to his head was dangerous the moment I saw it. Got it. I want to have a little chat alone with him for a bit. Would you mind? Well, okay. Call me in if anything happens. After basically forcing Dr. Erie outside, he shut the door. How you feeling? I did something I'm not used to. I'm pretty banged up. Oishi brought over a folding chair that was leaning against a wall, sitting down beside a bed. Were the perps arrested? Unfortunately, no. They're probably already fled the prefecture, probably being hidden by the villagers. We won't let them get away, though. And the minister's grandson? Taking care of him at the station. Your colleagues from Tokyo are rather insistent that nothing is to be recorded. Shin-chan doesn't like that too much. It was a confidential matter, so custody was probably being kept under wraps. How the kidnapping of the minister's grandson would be handled, covered up, treated like it will never happen, it'll be handled by the top brass. If this case ended without the nation going into an uproar about it, our job had been done. The possibility that the minister had negotiated with the perpetrators couldn't be ruled out. But something like that was no longer my concern. My role in this case was over. Sorry for the trouble. You must think that public safety is a rather unseemly place, don't you? No. We all work on the government's dime. He laughed boisterously. When we first met, I was somehow prejudiced against Oishi, but now that feeling was gone completely. It'd be more convenient for us if the case was handled properly instead of being hidden away, but if that happened, we wouldn't have something to go on at the Sozaki family with since they were behind it all. Well, we just start poking around, we'll get all sorts of pressure put on this, though. What a mess. You gonna continue to fight against the Sozaki family? Yeah, there's all sorts of dark rumors swirling around them. Not like I have a personal grudge. Be wise not to step on any toes here. He laughed happily. I couldn't help but laugh along. Oh, that's right, there was word at the station from the prefectural police. Colleagues arrived in Nagoya and are driving up here right now. You got your battle scars, you're being recalled to Tokyo apparently. So I was shaking up. Good job, your work in Okinomiya is safely over. I was being recalled to Tokyo. I inadvertently breathed a sigh of relief when I heard those words. I'm deeply thankful for your cooperation, Oishi. Seems the collaboration fee I paid you didn't go to waste. Gotta admit that it's a joke, though. He took out his wallet, casually pulled out several large bills, jamming them into the breast pocket of my shirt. This isn't a refund on the collaboration fee here. Just me gifting you a little spending money. Booze around here is pretty good. Use this to buy yourself a souvenir. He flashed me a grin. If your injuries turn out to not be too serious, call me before you head back to Tokyo, will ya? The old man and Sato said they'd like to sit at the table with you again. Oh my, I can't refuse that. No tricks this time. Plain old fun. They always say that. This world's done for if an active officer can cheat that plainly. Not often we meet someone who's more than a match for us. It's too bad you're going back to Tokyo. When I heard the words going back to Tokyo from Oishi, I'm reminded once again I was relieved from my duties. Yuki would be giving birth soon. It might still be possible to attend the delivery that I had one time given up on. When I thought of that, the pain from my injuries became trivial. I wanted to hurry back to Tokyo and see Yuki at once. Can you pretend your injuries are a bit more serious than hanging around Okinomiya for a bit? I can introduce you to a few nice places. Of course, I won't make you pay for everything. Terribly sorry, but I have to take a rain check on that. My wife is due to give birth any day now. I want to hurry back home. Oh my! I didn't know that. You shouldn't be hanging around here then. You'll have to hurry back. For a while after that, he asked all sorts of questions about my wife, teasing and bantering. Well then, how do you feel? Think you can get up? It's not so bad. Thanks, I can get up and walk no problem. I stood up and shuffled around a bit, which seemed to amuse him. I just thought you might not feel comfortable at a hospital in Himizawa. Dr. Iri said he wanted to stay overnight, but we still haven't caught the perps. For the time being, this is enemy territory for you after all. You saying this hospital isn't safe? Well, Dr. Iri is someone who's well regarded in the community. I don't think anything's going to happen to you while you're here, but I'm more worried about the mental health. I have relaxed a bit now that things have progressed, but it was exactly as Oishi has said. When I realized this was still enemy territory, I felt uncomfortable. But the only thing left for me to do was leave. The chance that I would come to harm was logically fairly low. But that didn't mean I was completely safe. You're right. If I'm just going to be lying down, doing it in a hotel bed won't be at all that bit different. Right. I think it's for the best. At the moment, I caught a glimpse of the clock over Oishi's shoulder. It was evening. Hours where I can call Yuki at the hospital were almost over. I want to tell her as quickly as possible I will soon be back at her side. I want to call Yuki at the hospital. Is there a phone in the lobby? You newlyweds are all like this. If I recall correctly, one by the register. I'll be waiting here. Go ahead. Oh, while laughing, while he said he was jealous, Oishi opened up the window, pulling out a cigarette, even though he was in a hospital room. Appreciated how considerate Oishi was, I set out to the lobby, finding the phone. The lobby was just a short distance down the hall from the hospital room. I thought this hospital was a bit too grand for a village like this, but of course, nothing compared to the general hospital Yuki was admitted to. Running in a hospital wasn't the best manners, but calling hours would soon end, so I dashed over in a hurry. Nobody else in the lobby. It might have been evening, but there was nobody at the reception desk. Well, this might actually be lucky for me, though. I wasn't planning to have a conversation to feel guilty about, but it would still be embarrassing to have someone listen to it. Taking a quick look around, there's the payphone. Digging around the pockets, there's some few coins. I was calling Tokyo from here, so I burned through this amount fairly quickly. Picked up the receiver, inserted a coin, dialed a number for Yuki's hospital that I completely memorized at this point. The number for Yuki's hospital had a lot of 8 digits and a lot of 8s and 9s. Dialing it inevitably took some time. Normally it wouldn't be a big deal, but currently time was precious. I felt that something was strange as I was dialing that number. I don't know exactly how to put it, but it was as if the receiver was too quiet. The unique white noise from the telephone line wasn't there. Somehow I felt that I wasn't getting any feedback from the phone. Without feeling a response, I hanged up the receiver to try again. The coin popped out from the return slot. I reinserted and dialed once again, but the receiver was dead silent. What is this? Is it disconnected? While I was wasting time like this, the amount I had to spend time with Yuki shrunk. I felt needlessly impatient. Excuse me! I felt the presence of someone on the other side of the glass. I called out. I immediate response. A man who seemed like a pharmacist came over. How can I help you? Pardon me, this phone seems to be acting a little strange. Could you take a look at it? He came over and tried testing various things with the receiver pressed to the ear. Come to think of it, this was someone who worked at a hospital, not someone from the phone company. I didn't know that much about phones either, so... what's this? The man held up the cord that was connected to the phone to the wall. It was severed. The heck is that? Well, this dilly a pickle can't do anything until somebody from the phone company fixes it. If you're looking for a phone, do you want to use the one in the office? I didn't want the people in the hospital office around when I was talking. Is there another payphone close by? If you leave here and follow the road, you'll come into the shopping district. I think there's a smoke shop in the corner around there. If you head that way, you should be able to find one soon enough. I was dressed in a hospital gown. I was wearing sandals on my feet. Head was wrapped in bandages. Just look at me. You could tell I was a hospital patient. No matter how you look at it, I was not dressed to be wandering outside. But that's where the impetuousness of youth came in. Choosing the chance to talk to Yuki for a little longer, I headed outside. Following the road to the shopping district. Should be able to find one soon enough. With only those 2 lines as my guide, I ran outside the gates of the hospital. The village nestled in a valley. The sun set. It gets dark quickly. The sparse streetlights lit up enough to start attracting moths. The Higurashi, known with the time for their chorus, was soon at a close, redoubled their fragile cries. Finding the payphone wasn't easy as the person at the hospital suggested. Still up ahead? Did I miss it? Or was I just getting farther away? Just as I was about to be crushed by the wave of uncertainty, I found a shop cornered with cigarettes written on a small sign. Joy spurred on me. Just as I heard that the hospital, set next to the counter of the cigarette, was an antiquated payphone. I wasn't wearing a watch. I didn't know what time it was. I probably didn't have much left. It was enough. As long as I could tell you my job was done and I'll be coming home soon. Picking up the receiver, I slid a coin. But I felt that something was strange, just like at the hospital. Even after I turned in the coin, the phone showed no response. I hung up the receiver and tried putting in the coin one more time. Absolutely no response. The phone was dead. It couldn't be. Thinking that, I felt along the cord that protruded from the back of the phone. Doing that, my hands found the end of a completely severed line. What is this? Having now had the same thing happen twice, my bafflement was accompanied by a sense of unease. The cord has been severed cleanly by a sharp blade. I might be mistaken, but it didn't look like much time has passed since it was cut. Excuse me, hello? Opening up the booth window of the tobacco shop, I looked for someone in the dimly lit interior. There were sounds of somebody plodding down the stairs, and an old lady appears. Her plodding and lethargic steps, for some reason, served me more frantic. He needs a cigarette. I'll get my husband. I'm not here to buy cigarettes. This phone here. Realizing that saying the phone was broken and asking him to take a look, it was going to get me nowhere, so I swallowed back my words. Seems that this phone is broken. I was wondering if you could tell me where there's another payphone. The old lady moved her jaw up and down slowly as if chewing on the meaning of my words. Seems that she wouldn't understand until she had digested things. The phone is broken. A dilly of a pickle. Yeah, try another payphone. The old lady directed me to another payphone that seems quite a ways away. Her way of telling me was long-winded, and I inadvertently started to get impatient. I spotted a clock in a dim-lit interior of the store. The minute hand was just about to point straight up. If there was a phone right here that I could use, I would be able to tell Yuki good night with the time I had left. On top of that, my destination was a remote payphone that I didn't know the exact distance to. If I was in a normal state of mind, deciding to give up the phone today would have been a natural thought process. But at the moment, I am somewhat stubborn, for some reason. Unable to use the phone in a hospital, coming out here and still being unable to use one. No mistaking, I became quite insistent on using a phone. Thank you, I'll try looking for that phone booth. Refusing her offer to draw me a map, I left. According to the old lady, the phone booth was quite far away. It would be easy to find. I just follow the road straight down. I'll eventually find it. Sandals slapping as I ran, I couldn't help but laugh at myself. I'll admit I was quite steadfast about calling Yuki, but there were days where I was tired or busy when I wouldn't call her. Today my entire body was covered in injuries and I was dead tired. On top of that, there wasn't much time left. It wouldn't be strange at all if today was one of those days that I didn't call her. Having twice been foiled to try to call her, have I become hot-headed about it? Is that like a dog being told to stay with a piece of food dangled in my face? What am I doing? Even so, I couldn't quite quell the uneasy feeling sitting in the pit of my stomach. It was like that with the hospital phone and the same one with the tobacco shop. Both cords, definitely not server for being frayed of long years of use. Clean cuts indicated someone had taken something sharp to deliberately cut them. But who and for what reason? The more I thought about it, the uneasier I felt. I tried to push the thought aside. How much had I run so far? The scenery around me was no longer that of a shopping district, with residential buildings scattered about the lonely road, the surroundings grown dark. I was blatantly out too far for a quick phone call, and it was quite obvious I was far removed from the hospital. I recall the clock as I saw the tobacco shop. Might almost be time. I run for quite a bit. My breathing has grown quite ragged. If I just wanted to hear Yuki's voice, I should have thrown away my reservations and just borrowed the phone at the office. I regret it. A little. What is it about time to give up, though? When I thought that, I saw the light in front of me. I finally found it, a phone booth. The light in the phone booth had recently been charged. It shone with a vivid white light. Although in the gloom of Hinamizawa is nothing more than a gathering spot for moths. In any case, I finally found it. My hand touched the door of the phone booth. I realized I was breathing and sweating heavily. I didn't know what time it was, but even for just a moment I might be able to get in touch. I spent all this effort getting here. Turning back without even giving it a try was out of the question. Before I picked up the receiver, another wave of uneasiness washed over me. I was worried that this phone call might be severed. How was the cord in this phone booth? Squatting down, I found a bunch of cables as they ran along the corner to the ceiling. Nothing was out of the ordinary. I ran my fingers as far as I could along the line to check it out. The only thing they found was a thick layer of dust. Nothing out of the ordinary. I wonder if it was popular in Hinamizawa to cut the cords of payphones as some sort of tasteless prank. I'd be prudent to talk to Uishi about this later. Even if it was nothing more than a prank, it was still vandalism of public property. In any case, this one was fine this time. Pulling out a cord, I picked up a receiver with the other. Before the receiver even reached my ear, something was off. The receiver was light. More than a slightly unpleasant feeling. It felt almost sickening. To verify the source of my displeasure, I peered at the receiver in my hand with a measure of reluctance. The hell? The coil cord that connected the receiver to the rest of the phone had been ripped apart, the tip of the cable swaying in the air. All I can do to restrain myself as a raw and unpleasant feeling worked its way up the small of my back. It was a type of dread. I heard the crunch of somebody stepping on gravel. The light was reflecting off the glass walls of the booth, leaving me unable to see the outside in the darkness. I steeled myself and stepped out of the phone booth. The inside was lit with that strong light, which might have made it warmer in there. Just stepping outside, there was a chill that washed over me. There was the silhouette of a person. A small one. The long hair of that silhouette was blown in the cool breeze. Injured people shouldn't be sneaking out of the hospital. Somewhere in my head, I knew who this girl was. I didn't have any bias for it, but I knew that she was that girl. Right, Akasaka? Rika Furude. It was almost like it was a warning from her. Did you do this to the phone cord? Her expression remained unchanged, my question left unanswered. No response. I felt that she had affirmed my suspicions regardless. Why would you do something like this? Why? The last word had a tinge of anger behind it. I frantically tried to smooth things out, but she didn't seem afraid. There's nothing that can be done. I interpreted her words as meaning that I wasn't going to be in time for calling hours at the hospital. But thinking about it, that would have been a strange thing to say. Why would she know something like that? I could tell what she had said to have any other meaning. She was just stood there by the mannequin, not even moving an inch, to the point that if the wind wasn't occasionally rustling through her hair, it would have been the illusion that time stopped. I know very well that you think I'm disgusting, Akasaka. No, not true. My denial came almost like a bad piece composed for a poetry slam. But the words were right on mark. I felt something ominous and uncanny about her ever since the strange threats at the shrine. She noticed that my expression was contrary to my words, laughing at the gap between them. Akasaka, you coward. I'm not coward. Being laughed at by the small child didn't sit well with me. I said that. Even if we find another phone, it's too late. You're right. Didn't even have to say it. I was way too late. Might have already missed calling hours by the time I reached this phone booth. I had no option but to give up today. I decided that my unhealthy obsession suddenly faded. Even I thought it was a bit strange that I was obsessed. The strange obsession is gone as I left off how hopeless I was. I mean, look at what I was wearing. It's not normal. A hospital gown, sandals, head wrapped in bandages, body completely soaked in sweat. I wondered that the old lady at the tobacco shop wasn't surprised to see me. With wanting to help Yugi's voice as my motive, I traipsed around town the entire evening. I didn't know whether to call it the follies of youth or simply plain embarrassing. In any case, it was all I could do but to laugh at myself. Now there's nothing left for Akasaka to do tonight. Well, there's nothing. I'll just quietly return to the hospital. That's fine. Do you know the way? I hope I do. She waved her little hand as I began to head back the way I came. She followed alongside me. Looking at her face, I could see she wore a mischievous smile, as if she was extremely interested in whether or not I get lost. Is Rika's house also this way? It is. Would your parents be mad that you're walking around alone at this hour? Not really. My parents are busy today. They probably forgot about me. Even then, it's best if you head on home. They'll definitely be mad. Even if they are, it's much more interesting to talk with Akasaka. I'm fine. She said that with a face free of worry as she looked at me and smiled. When she showed me that smile, the eerie feelings surrounded her faded. But even then, she was still as mysterious to me as ever. We arrived at the corner I turned earlier. It was much darker than before, and with the point of view changed on the return trip, I wasn't very confident that this was the actual corner I turned at. No mistake, it had to be. As I began to move my feet, the girl grabbed. Isn't Akasaka going back to the hospital? Of course, at least I intend to. Am I going the wrong way? A short moment of silence. Still holding my clothes, she walked. It's the beginning of the walk to the hospital this mysterious girl will take me on. The person who was running around cutting all the phone cords, was it you? You shouldn't do that. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Really? Tried to play it dumb, but it was written all over her face. Heepa. Obvious he was trying to laugh it off, but the adorable smile of hers just made me want to forgive her. I'm going to be a horrible father, am I? The momentary lapse in tension was erased by her next words. It's good that they found the grandson safe and sound. Unable to respond, I sunk into silence. I already learned of this from Sato-san's info. This girl, this entire village knew everything since the moment I set foot in it. I considered playing dumb, but in the end I chose not to. Everything being known already, there's no point in me faking ignorance. Somehow. That's great, now you can go back to Tokyo. Thanks. Are your injuries bad, Akasaka? I don't know, I haven't heard anything from the doctor yet, so I don't know if they are or not. Huh? Come to think of it, I vaguely remember being told to lie down and take it easy for 24 hours. Does that mean bed rest? The wounded shouldn't be sneaking out of the hospital. People shouldn't be cutting phone cords. Me, I have no idea what you're talking about. Then I don't know what you're talking about either. We played dumb with each other. We both laughed at the same time. If somebody saw us laughing, it would probably bring a smile to their lips. The chances of Akasaka leaving this village alive weren't very high. I don't want Akasaka to die. I'm glad you're leaving the village. Rika, did you know what I was right from the beginning? She said nothing but gave a firm nod. I think you know this, but we're probably somewhat of an enemy to the people in this village, I would think. But you still gave me lots of warnings. That's right, she said it at the time. Wouldn't warn somebody that she was okay with dying. She said something like that. I should probably be thanking you. You probably should. I'm your savior. Saying that, she puffed her chest proudly. She said it jokingly, but the meaning behind those words are quite heavy. Because whether I lived or died was a decision that might have been made in a place unbeknownst to me. She said those words with an adorable smile that it took a few moments of silence for the weight to settle in. I've been to this place before. The Defense Alliance office was there. It was the stone steps leading up to the Furude Shrine. When I passed by before, I was so focused on finding a phone booth I hadn't realized where I was. If I recall correctly, this shrine is Rika's house, right? Yeah, something like that. Looking up at the shrine grounds, it was brightly lit and energetic voices could be heard. What was going on? There's a festival today. A festival? The best and only festival of Hinamizawa. The Watsunagashi Festival. Huh. That's cotton drifting, right? Just knowing the name is boring. You want to take a look? She was asking bluntly. Seeing that I looked interested, she climbed up a couple of steps, motioning for me to come. I was only going to go back and sleep anyways. If I had nothing else to do, it might not be a bad idea to go with her on a little detour. In the hostile territory that was this village, I didn't know what would happen if I ventured down a side road without Oishi. Even though I thought the village looked like that, when I was with this girl, I forgot all about it. In any case, even without anything to back it up, I felt that as long as I was with her, none of the ill will of the village would befall me. That's why even though I knew my cover was blown, I strangely had no qualms about setting foot into the heart of the Onagafuji Defense Alliance's territory. Climbing up the grounds of the shrine, I could see there was about 3 pavilions set up, meeting tables, folding chairs, old folks from the village, or maybe the executives of the Defense Alliance, already drunk, sharing another round of drinks. I could only see it as people from the village council drinking while enjoying the evening air. At the very least, it was certainly quite different than any festival I'd ever seen. See, it's quite as a boring festival, wasn't it? Certainly doesn't look like a festival. It's a festival that happened since long ago, but as you can see, it's not like it used to be. As if to chide the old folks, she said that while looking at them with an exasperated expression. You really couldn't call this a festival anymore, just a bunch of neighbors getting together drinking under the guise of a festival. I felt sorry for the deity to be celebrated here. Use this sorry excuse of a festival 5 or 6 more years, everybody will start coming. Ceremony will also be done properly. It'll be a respectable festival again. What she said was not much of wishful thinking. It was telling the future that had already been determined. She wasn't even predicted it. It was as if she was simply reporting the results. How it sounded, anyway. It was a baseless speculation, but the way she said it wouldn't let me interject. It wasn't the same way she talked when she changed. While I struggled to find the words to reply to her, she wandered over to the other side of the grounds, not minding me. Not in a state where I could afford to be left behind, I hurriedly followed her. Past the two copse of pine trees, a strong and cool breeze ruffled my hair. From that one evening was the splendid observation platform the girl showed me. As it had grown completely dark, the modest lights littered across the nightscape, providing a different type of scenery. Looking at it like this, the village seemed tranquil. She said that with a different look on her face. Just the other day, you said this village is not going to be submerged by the dam, didn't you? She didn't reply, seemingly relishing the feeling that the wind blew into her hair. Did that mean at that point in time the minister already complied with the demands? She spun around, gaze meeting mine. She said nothing. Not a word that would neither confirm or deny. This case will probably remain shrouded in darkness. Headquarters doesn't want trouble from a scandal with the minister breaking out. There's no mistake that they threatened to kill the grandchild. Negotiations with the minister were successful and the grandson was released. The one who saved the grandson was you. I wondered about that. Discovered the wallet that started this chain of events. That alone was a little too convenient. Ever since the moment the wallet was discovered, something felt odd. Oishi said it as well, that the Sonozaki family had given the order to release the hostage. Our little manhunt was a farce to begin with, it seems. Come to think of it, I was punched, kicked, and had a gun pointed at me. And shot at. I felt like they put up quite a fight, but that might have been all part of a good performance. Once the negotiations were successful, they could have just said, "Here you go," returning the minister's grandson to his doorstep. They knew public safety had realized this was a kidnapping case and were moving in on it. That's why, due to the actions of public safety, the grandson was able to be rescued. But the minister didn't give in any unreasonable demands. That type of performance was necessary. I don't know about these difficult things. Likewise, even for me, I can't make much sense of it. But there's one thing I could be certain of. Huh? It's just as you said, this village won't be submerged. The dam project will soon be over. That wasn't something an officer of the law should be saying, but I let those words slip out naturally. It may have stirred up all sorts of trouble, but that was because they were protecting their homes. If someone just decided by themselves that I had to leave the house I was used to living in, I would resent them. On top of that, it wasn't a place like mine where I just happened to re-rent it, a place that the families had lived for generations. Might be any right to call their desperate resistance an overreaction. I might not really be qualified to criticize politics or bureaucracy, but deliberately building a dam on land that was loved by residents is something I just couldn't... it wasn't something I couldn't get behind. Still, aren't you glad? Why would that be? At the very least, with this, peace will return to this village. The minister promised to use this considerable influence to cancel the project. It would probably take more a few months before it would be completely scrapped. At the very least, it would probably take 1, maybe 2 years. For the villagers to officially hear that the village wasn't going to be submerged at the bottom of the dam, it was still a ways away. No mistake. The promise of peace return to the village was there. It turned out from the beginning to end, it had already been decided. Just as the girl said, it was already decided. There wasn't really a need for me to come here in the first place. Absolutely no need to come here, aggravate an unpleasant situation. If I never come here, the Renaissance release might have been done in a more amicable manner.
Peace in this village.
She laughed it off, as to admonish me, but her face remained indifferent, nearly expressionless. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She sniggered.
Even though every year from now on something bloody will occur.
Rika, what are you talking about? As the wind blew her hair about, the girl, as a tyke taking pleasure that I was the only one that didn't know, she continued to snicker as she looked at my face for a while.
You see, in a few years, I'll be killed.
Backlit like the moon, it was hard to tell if her expression had been cast in shadow was smiling or amused, or resigned. You're gonna be... Why?
A very unpleasant thing, though. It's also probably been decided already.
Who would decide that sort of thing?
I'd like to know that as well.
Turning back to face me, she showed me a resolute expression for the first time. She stared into my eyes for a moment, then turned back and gazed at the scenery before she spoke those next words.
There's a lot of people who have no regard for human life. Even if I tell you this, it might not change anything. But if you want to erase the spectral death sometimes, like with the reflection of the moon on the water, all you have to do is throw a small stone.
No idea what she was trying to say. I had to listen to every word with my body and soul, or at least that's what I thought.
This day next year, June 1979, on this day, the foreman of the dam construction will be killed.
What? For a moment I couldn't comprehend what she was talking about. By the foreman, the gruff old man I was playing mahjong with? Killed? What makes you think that? No answer. But she had the same expression on her face as she did when she declared that the dam project would go away. That wasn't the face of somebody making a forecast or a prediction. Something that was already decided. Well, it was as if she already reported the results. That sort of expression.
After being killed in a gruesome manner, the body will be torn apart and disposed of.
Murdered and dismembered.
The next year, June 1980, on this day, Sadako's parents will be pushed to their deaths.
Who is this person? First time I heard that name. I didn't have the courage to interrupt this girl's story.
It might be an accident, an unfortunate one.
She smiled faintly, but she wasn't exactly encouraging me to smile along with a lifeless look in her eyes.
Year after that, June 1981, parents will be killed. And the year after that, this day in June of 1982, her abusive aunt, Sadako's abusive aunt, will have her head split open and die. Year after that, June 1983, possibly a few days afterwards, I'll be killed.
If all the deaths are preordained, the last one would also be according to plan. But whose plan would it be? The village is full of murderers and people who have no regard of human life. We find to believe that all the deaths up to 1982 will be the work of somebody in the village. It would be fine to believe that all the deaths that would occur were at the discretion of those who control the village. But that didn't explain what will happen in 1983. No way the last death would fit with anybody's plans. They have no regard for human life, using every means at their disposal to meet their goals. But their goals were at odds with the last death. That's why the last death was unrelated. But the last one would definitely, most likely, probably, without question, happen. Probably, definitely, I dare say, the last death would be a merciful one. A handkerchief, something being placed over their mouth, making them lose conscious to never wake up again. Whose plan was that, though?
I want to live happily. That's my only wish.
surrounded by my
precious friends, spending our days enjoyably. Only that. I don't wish for anything more than that.
Rika.
I don't want to die.
The girl, stoic as ever, let those words slip by. Eventually, we were discovered by drunks. The girl, as were I, we were dragged back to the festivities. Everybody was completely drunk. Even when they saw my head wrapped in bandages, they wouldn't let me leave. Certainly, if I was in good enough condition to slip out of the hospital, it must not have been serious. The girl was mingling with everybody, being pampered like a kitten. The expression was adorable, not like the one from before. It wasn't like that, predicting her own death, whispering that she didn't want to die. Having said that, a silly and lively conversation like this was hard to believe that these people were the core of an extremist resistance group. Even if it was a shell of its former self, it was a festival that people in the village gathered. 20-some odd folk here. It should have included some of the village executives, other important members. Among those, no doubt, there were members of the Sonozaki family council in attendance. Even if we never met face to face, there were people here who probably knew my identity. In a small village like this, they knew the faces of all the villagers. So without even saying anything, it should become obvious I was an outsider. They actually seemed interested by that, asking me all sorts of questions, drinking while musing on the faint relationship the city had with the villagers, sympathizing with the rather meager environment. Confidential talks with the minister were finished. His grandson was in police custody. Everything is over. I might not have to be put in another perilous situation. To me, they were only my adversaries because of my job. Outside of that, no reason I couldn't be friendly with them. Next time I visit this village, would it return to being a tranquil, beautiful place? If that happened, I might be able to take a relaxed walk around the village with her. My cup was once again filled to the brim with beer. By the time I was able to get away, it was the middle of the night. The girl at some point disappeared. Her parents told her to go home probably, sleep when she let out a large yawn. Yo, folks absolutely had normal words to make an injured person hang out with them. They told me as much as they left. I was just there drinking. I thought to help a bit with cleanup, but my help was refused on the grounds I was a guest. They had a guard prepared to take me back to the hospital. Losing the battle against my sleepiness inside the car, I was sound asleep until we reached the parking lot. The front door of the hospital was naturally locked at this hour. I wandered around bewilderedly searching for a back entrance until someone on night duty found me and let me inside. Where were you this late at night? Dr. Yuri was worried. Sorry for the trouble. I was held up by the people having a festival at the shrine. Oh, they did something about everybody in the town council getting together for a drink. My condolences. Your wound's alright. They're throbbing a bit. It's probably because of the alcohol. That's right. Detective that was with you wanted to get in touch. Oops. I kept Oishi waiting. I glanced at the clock. No matter how you look at it, it was way too late to call him now. I'll apologize to him tomorrow over the phone. I returned back to my hospital room, slipped into the bed. I was still unmade from the time I went outside. That's no good. I have to turn off the lights. But weariness cut the cord powering my body, and it lured me into a deep sleep. Mother's Diary. There was something I didn't like about my child. I first realized it when I started writing these things down. They never warn you about it in any of the books raising children, but they aren't just a plaything. If they're unable to feel love even when they're not doing exactly as their parents want them to, those parents are failures. Wasn't something like that, though. How can I say it? Probably hard to express with mere words. I just want my child to be average. As long as they weren't falling behind, there wasn't any need for them to excel at something. As long as they acted appropriately for their age, I would have been fine with it. But my child has been different ever since kindergarten. While the children in her class were running around in excitement about the field trip the next day, she wore a bored look on her face, aloof and distant. The other kids broke the equipment for the athletics festival, apologized fairly. She only wore a bored look on her face, aloof, distant. When the teacher was reading a phone book, she wasn't smiling. Even if all they got to eat a delicious bento, she wasn't happy. If it was only this, it would still be in the realm of understanding. But what I don't understand about my child is that if the aforementioned situations happen again, they now act in a manner befitting their age. I don't understand the principle behind it as a parent. Why were they indifferent about that field trip, but happy about this one? Why were they indifferent about that picture book, but happy about this one? Were they indifferent about that bento? Why happy about this one? The former and the latter each situation seemed exactly the same. There were even times where I thought the former one was better. I don't understand this child's feelings. During parent-teacher meetings, the teacher always said the same thing. And I would always respond that I don't understand my own child. We would mope together. My husband, always the optimist, once said that a young child's feelings are different from an adult's. If there were some things that we didn't understand, we shouldn't worry about it. All I meant is like emergency. One day when I was in a good mood, I took the effort to prepare a menu that my child would enjoy, but she only smiled with a vague expression of disinterest. That attitude frankly made me angry, so I hit her on the head. On the day when the weather was nice, the laundry I had just hung up to dry was blown by a large gust of wind, causing the entire line to fall down. But she, watching me trying to pick up the laundry in a panic, stood there laughing. That attitude frankly made me angry. I hit her on the head. I think the same sort of thing happened countless times. Before I knew it, my child was only able to look at me with an indifferent expression. I regret the fact that I've been a bad mother. Thinking I should regain her trust, I thought to get it back little by light interactions. Seeing her do some sort of craft work on the veranda, I called out to her. These past few days have been nice and sunny. The air feels nice, doesn't it? That child, with that indifferent look on her face, I hated so much, looked at me for a moment, without a word, returning to immersing herself in craft work. Up until now, I would have hit her on the head, but I've held back. What are you making? Is it a doll? A weather charm. The child was using inserts in the newspaper to deftly make weather charms. Forecast hadn't called for rain, but that child in her own way was praying that these sunny days would continue. Being able to understand my own child for the first time in a while, I couldn't hide my happiness. Bringing out a ball of yarn, I've hanged my children's cute weather charms from the eaves of the house. It's no good, Rika. The heads are too heavy. They become reverse weather charms now. If they're like this, they'll call the rain instead of sun. When I started to take them down, my child tugged at the hem of my shirt as if to stop me. That's because I made them to be upside down. They're fine. But Rika, if they're upside down, they wouldn't be a charm that calls for a sunny day, you know. I was making for a charm for it to rain, so they're fine. A desperate, suppressed emotions well up inside me. I was trying to desperately understand my child. Oh, I see. The morning glories in the garden were starting to get a little wilted. You want some rain, right? That child turned to me with the expression that I hated the most. I got bored of the clear weather. I don't understand. I just can't understand this child. So we're dealing with the mother's diary, Rika's mother. Oh, a different one. During family council, she buried herself under Oria's son's futon again. She dotes on her unwaveringly. No matter what insolence my child commits, she doesn't mind. Almost as though my child is a kitten or something. Ori dotes on her exactly like you would with a kitten. As her mother, I chided her for doing that. Until Ori said it 3 times, it was fine. I chided her as a formality. Of course, she never lends an ear to any of my chidings. Knowing that Ori's standing was far above mine, she behaves like that. I don't like the cutting that's unbefitting of her age either. Not only Ori's son, but the rest of the old folk in the village spoil her too much. One day I was surprised. By chance on the way back from shopping, I saw her by herself just outside a candy shop. My own child suddenly grabbed a snack, opened the package right there, and started eating it. Didn't make any attempt to pay for it. She didn't even think of looking around. It didn't even feel like she was shoplifting, like she was brazenly eating snacks that was offered to her. When again in homage my child, the elderly shop owner appeared and covered for her. The owner gave the ridiculous excuse he had said it was okay for that child to eat any of the snacks out of interest. When I tried to pay for the snacks, the owner refused. During the exchange, more old folks had suddenly gathered around, began to feel like I was the one in the wrong. The elderly people all put their hands together reverently in front of my child, repeatedly voicing their respects. I was born in a Furude family, so it wasn't like I didn't know why she was being treated specially. When I was still young, it was something I heard often from my grandmother. If by chance the child that I give birth was a girl, that child will be the living incarnation of Oyashiru. All the other folk that believe she is the living incarnation, and they spoil her rotten. Not only did they spoil her, but they even told her she was the living incarnation of Oyashiru. She had a divine power, and threw all sorts of strange folk tales her way. She might have begun to believe herself that she was a special existence. I went around and told everybody that it wasn't good for her upbringing, so to stop telling her all these strange things, but there was no unrooting the elderly people's deep-seated superstitions. I told my child to not listen to them, but it ended up being that she stopped listening to me. Between all the old folks of the village who would dote on her and myself who only scolded her, there was no wonder who she would listen to. No mistaking the reason she had become strange was because of the elderly villagers. No doubt they have shoved her full of strange folk tales and superstitions since she was young. If it wasn't for that, there was no doubt my child would have been cute and normal. One sunny parent-teacher day, there was a cooking class and my child was making curry rice with a practiced hand. Other children were heroically using their kitchen knives. The child was wielding hers deftly. The teacher approached me with a smile on her face, saying it must have been a result of learning at home. I managed to play it off with a vague smile and a nod. This was because I never once taught my child how to make curry rice. Even then, she was peeling vegetables with a practiced hand, adding them to the pot in the order which they took longer to cook. For a normal parent, they might have unintentionally clapped their hands together, happy at the child's actions. But in my case, it was different. There was no mistaking that somebody had taught her how to make that curry rice when I wasn't taking care of her. Thinking that, I quietly fell into an unpleasant mood. When I asked, it seemed she could also sew, do the laundry. I never taught her how to do those things. I never saw her do it around the house. Cooking or sewing? Again, probably because the elderly villagers taught her all sorts of rubbish when I wasn't looking. Not only that, they probably taught her all sorts of strange superstitions, propping her up as the living incarnation of Oyashiru. I said as much to my husband, suggesting we should keep our child away from the elderly folk. But my husband, in the position of being the head priest of the Furude shrine, had little power against the elderly that supported it. He took the rather uncommitted stance of saying that as long as she was being doted upon, wasn't it fine? I argued that she was our child. She should be a completely normal girl. It's what the elderly were expecting, that she was the living incarnation. It was simply odd. Oh. The elderly villagers believed the child had divine powers. We would discuss the weather for the following day, but there were many times where I left the house without an umbrella and came back soaking wet. Rather than have a clairvoyance, it was second-hand knowledge of her watching news all the time. Things that she knew she shouldn't have known were just the result of people who were trying to indoctrinate her, people who were gossiping, getting together in the village. There certainly were days where everybody thought it was going to be sunny, and the child would separately not go out without an umbrella. It would occasionally rain, and in the end we would be saved. Might also have been times Rika knew of major accidents in foreign countries faster than the news did. I thought that she must have heard it break over the radio or something. Knowing these things, she shouldn't have. Something like that was in front of me right now, wasn't it? Child was making curry rice where there shouldn't have been anybody who taught her how to. It couldn't possibly be the case. Someone had taught her, indoctrinated her. When I wasn't taking care of her, someone had indoctrinated Rika with something. Fruity says curry is absolutely splendid. I'll give it a gold star. Ipa, where did you learn to cook? At home? Yes, at home. The other parents in attendance were impressed. It was all lies. I didn't teach her anything. Who was it? Who was the person who had completely indoctrinated my child? She was my normal, average daughter, not the living incarnation of Arishiru. Looks like we read all of the tips. Something tells me that our last chapter will indeed be the last. The next chapter will be the last one.